And welcome to the Talon Outdoor Show. I'm Charlie.
I'm JD.
I'm Captain Paul Tire.
I am Fred.
Go ahead, Dale.
And I'm Dale.
Yeah,
Dale Bissett.
Just
Dr.
Dale.
Fish.
Dr.
Special
Fish.
guest today.
Special guest star.
Somebody call a doctor. I'm here.
he's like the executive producer, sort of something.
Kind of, sort of, maybe.
He's the reason this show exists.
Yeah.
Well, you are the reason it exists.
No.
For what now? Going on 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I remember when we originally sat down, I think it was you came to us and said, hey, y'all want to do your own radio show?
I remember that.
And what was our response? Was you remember better than I do.
Oh, I remember.
I think it was something like, yeah, I reckon.
Yeah. Who is going to listen to us?
It was more like, y'all sure you want to do this, Dale?
Now, what kind of idiot's going to listen to us? Well, if y'all listening,
We still
that's
do it.
you that person.
It was one of those. We'll do one or two of them and see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
10 years
Yeah.
later.
We'll do a couple of them.
Going
See how
on
it
11.
goes.
Yep, going on 11
Is it really
years.
that long?
Yes, sir.
Do you
Dang.
have a recording of the first show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
We
I think
do.
they're all on iHeart Radio. You can go back
Yes.
and on our iHeart podcast thing. You can go back and listen to every one of them. They're all there for posterity
Yeah,
And the thing is, it sounds just like now.
today.
I mean, it's like
Different
no
stuff,
time has gone by, but we're at show 417,
What?
418 today, something like that.
So
and it's a weekly show. That's a lot of weeks.
So
Yes.
here's the
Somebody
question.
do the math.
So on the first show, is it like it is now, where we walk in and nobody says anything to anybody, you just start talking?
Yep.
Yeah,
that's it.
pretty much. And it was in Preston's studio.
Yep.
And so we'd walk in there, and who produced us originally? Who was the
Lord.
Was it David Allen?
David Allen, and then Dallas.
I think it was, yeah.
David Allen.
Brian.
And we walked in
had-
with zero agenda.
And
And
you
we're
just
like,
said, start
welcome to the
talking.
Talon Outdoor Show, and we're going whatever, we're going to talk
It
about
usually
stuff.
started with right before Charlie looking at me and go, what we going to talk about today?
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's-
I don't think we've walked in here with notes more than 6 or 8 times in the history of our show where we actually had any semblance of an idea of what we might talk about.
When did you start doing the "and we're back"?
From day one.
From day
Yeah,
one.
pretty much. Had to say something between when we came back from the. Well, I don't remember back.
And then we got a little bit of coaching along the way from Preston.
Yeah. Did
You
he
know, he
watch
said-
like the first one?
Well, there was no watching then.
No,
there was no
he-
video.
He
There was-
listened every weekend, and he still does.
He listens to this?
Yep, sure does.
Uh-oh.
Probably why you ain't never been invited on his show, Fred.
Yeah, so I was on the show this morning. I mentioned Fred, and I said something about this phenomenon. He brought up this. Okay, so there's this phenomenon going around in the criminal world, particularly in the South, and it's a phenomenon called jugging.
Jugging.
Yeah, jugging, and what it is, I'm not really sure why they call it jugging.
Yeah, you follow.
Yeah, so you go get money out of an ATM or you get money from the bank or whatever, and these people follow you. They watch you. They're staking out the place. They say, okay, that person came out with money, and then they follow you somewhere, and then they rob you and run away, and then Fred defends you later on. And so
with the money that they stole.
probably,
Yeah.
if it wasn't recovered, and if it was recovered, then
Then they ain't
Fred's
hired
probably
me.
not getting paid because they're getting a public defender, and and it's referred to for some reason as jugging. And I said, yeah, well, if it was on our radio show, Fred would have something to say because his mind lives in the gutter. And I think Preston's response was a very respectful something along the line of, yeah, or something, because he's not going.
He ain't
I
going
can't
there.
drag him in the gutter with you.
And then you went to talking about hot brass down the cleavage. And you
Yeah, and
said,
I really didn't want to talk about that, but I told him a story on the break, and he goes, I'm not going to let you get away without telling that story. So you heard how I talked all around it
yeah.
to get back to it, and so it wasn't the main topic of conversation.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It really is.
No,
it
jugging?
really-
Yeah, it originated in South Carolina.
yeah, I wonder if they call it that because of like watching the jug float down the river waiting on a catfish to
It could
go to
be. And when I
bouncing
first heard
bouncing
about
the jug
it,
up and down.
yeah, I heard about it back a couple of months ago, and I thought
Because that's the first thing when y'all said that. That's my
That's
first
what I'm
thought. I'm
thinking,
thinking
too.
about I'm thinking about a fishing line tied
there's
to
an
a
epidemic of people throwing jugs in the lakes. I mean, what's going on? And then and sure enough, it's a thing. I mean, what they'll do is there's two of them, and they have it in cars. they follow the guy that's gone to go pay his workers in cash, or whatever he's doing. He's withdrawing money out of the ATM or the bank. They box him in at the next location, and he's not looking around or anything. And then they beat him up, take his money. So it's a carjacking is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But they're calling it jugging because that's just their slang.
And you are authorized to use lethal force to prevent said carjacking or violent felony from occurring. So that's another way Fred doesn't get to defend that person if they're not alive to be defended.
No, I hadn't been jugged. But,
well, neither.
Yep.
Well,
there you go. There's a.
I was thinking.
Feel
about
sorry
that.
for you.
and then that all led to talking about the cleavage accident.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
We have had that happen twice in the existence of the gun range. We had it happen twice where husband and wife come to the range. Wife wearing low cut shirt, which we recommend a collared shirt that's high cut that covers her from the neck down, and she was in both incidents. The wife was shooting the target, and a piece of hot brass came out of the pistol and went down her shirt, and she goes to get it out because it's painful as all get out, and in two separate occasions the wife has shot the husband in the leg, almost in the exact same spot in the leg, which is down just above the knee,
and not more than like a bay away from where the other one was.
Right.
And it causes it doesn't feel good. And so here's the thing: is there's a range rule. You're supposed to wear a closed collar shirt when you come out here. That's the reason there's the range rule. The range rule was in place ahead of that, but we don't enforce it because
we ain't gonna tell you how to dress.
So here's so you come in with your wife and she has cleavage. Well, good for you. You married well.
Happy for you.
Okay, good for you. However, there's an inherent risk if she dresses that way, and and it's a common way to do that and stay cool in the summer heat and all that. But how do I, standing there at the counter?
I'll tell you
how do I address the fact that your wife needs to cover all that up?
I tell you what I have done when I worked at the range a lot before we opened the store, and I was down at the range every day. I had a couple of ladies come in, and I just basically said, I'm going to give you a T-shirt. You need to wear it while you're on the range because of the way they were dressed. And she said, why do I need to wear a T-shirt? And I said, because there are parts that are exposed that you do not want hot brass landing on, and you need to cover that up, or there is a high risk potential for you to get burned. And she said, okay, thank you. And I said, thank you too. Have a nice day. And that was
I had one come in.
Huh? Henceforth, all you have to do is say, look, we have a guy that inspects this sort of thing.
No.
And they can call 222-4005.
No. We're trying to keep it in good taste. I did have someone come in very similar. It was a couple, and it physically fit and all this, and well maintained, both of them. And they were standing there, and I'm going, there's a very potential danger here, and I'm not sure. And so I didn't talk to her. I talked to him, and I said, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
And I told him the story of one that had occurred, and he goes, yeah. And I said, there's a reason I'm telling you this story. Are you taking her? Yeah, I'm going to show her some things. I said, I'm trying to keep you from going down the path. And based on her method of dress for today, there's a very high likelihood that this could reoccur. I'm trying to save you here. I'm not looking, but fairly obvious that you might want to figure. Well, she's got a jacket in there or something in the shirt. And I said, okay, you talk to her about it. I'm not going to talk to her about it. I don't want to make her uncomfortable. And you're not mad at me for bringing it up, are you? No, man, I appreciate it. I said, okay.
Yeah, you need to tell that story. You want to be.
I want to know why they got shot in the leg. I mean, because she got mad and shot the husband?
It's a dancing around, gun in one hand,
finger on the trigger,
and we tend to clench our fist when pain happens. She's completely forgotten that they had completely forgotten about the gun in their hand, and they were fully concentrating on the hot brass in a sensitive area.
So in one case, it was it was trying to drop the gun.
Yep.
With the finger still in the trigger guard, and the momentum of the gun spinning and pushing the trigger, and it was entirely it was reflexive, and it had
it was
normally and the thing is, they would have been perfectly safe under any other set of circumstances. And I'm not saying it's just a female thing. I'm just saying that it's a female thing because men typically don't have cleavage.
I have seen.
Although there are some.
I have seen officers. So we looking at pointing and talk. Oh,
Yeah, we'll be back. And we're back. So I'm
abruptly ended. We ran out of time. We got talking.
I didn't have a timer in front of me. I had a timer behind me, and I'm still trying to figure.
But anyway, so back to what we were talking about. We've had, like I said, those two incidents of hot brass and the cleavage, and we've had a couple of incidents at the range since we've been in business, all stemming from one particular brand of make and model of holster, not one we make.
Which is?
I don't know, Charlie. Do I say?
Okay, so different brands of holsters have different concerns, and most of your Safariland products, their retention system is off of the thumb around any of the locking mechanisms for Safariland holsters.
Deactivated with the thumb.
Right, or deactivated with the thumb. There is a holster style, and it is very much in wide use. It's from Black Hawk. It's a Serpa holster, and it's got a trigger finger release, okay, which the retention device inside the holster works fine. It's a good retention holster. However, you are manipulating that with your trigger finger, not your thumb. Well, your trigger finger also manipulates that little thing called the trigger, and the combination of those two without proper training I won't say it's inherently dangerous, but I will say that it can, without proper training, if you're not paying attention, can cause you to put your finger somewhere it doesn't belong at an inopportune time.
And in every circumstance, having talked to the person that had shot themselves in the foot or the leg with that Serpa holster, what happens is they start trying to work under time constraints. They're using a shot timer where they're trying to draw and fire as quickly as humanly possible, and they're using that index or the trigger finger to press in on a paddle to release the locking mechanism. And what happens is they've got all this pressure on their trigger finger, and it slides right straight up the holster. And as soon as their finger, because every one of these has been shot in the same place, which it'll run right down the outside of the leg or go right in the top of the foot on their strong side, and it's the pressure of that trigger finger coming off of the holster. And if you put pressure on your finger and do that, it kind of like snapping your fingers. Okay, so that pressure comes off the index finger and goes right on the trigger and slaps the trigger and goes bang, and you got a hole in your foot.
I've seen, like with in Roger Steele. Well, now I will say that I've seen situations where people were reholstering, and they had their fingers still on the trigger, and when they go to put it in a holster, and that can be any holster. It's not one particular brand. That can be any holster,
that
including Safariland and anybody else.
100% the shooter's fault there.
And you're trying to reholster with your finger on the trigger, and because you're inexperienced and untrained, and as you shove it in the holster, it pushes your trigger finger forward, and it will run that bullet right down through the holster and into the same places. Now, I've seen back when I went through my first Roger shooting course back in the day was Pat Thomas was at a SWAT guy running 1911, and we were trying to do those time
back on.
Well, we were doing those time drills to where
cheating.
Yeah, and as you're coming out of the holster, his finger was going to the trigger and presenting the gun to the target. It was bam, 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 all walked arounds up to the thing. And, of course, Bill was like, that's not how it's done. And everybody else is running Glocks. And so the Glock shooters, because he kind of designs that for that type of trigger system, not necessarily sweeping the safety off. So different firearms types can be higher liability than other firearms types just based on the trigger mechanisms. And then when you get to doing trigger jobs on stuff and you're trying to smooth things out or polishing things is one thing, but when you start grinding and doing stuff
lowering
like that,
the pound, the weight it takes to discharge trigger, that's why we really don't even, we sell Glock makes a Glock factory competition trigger that will doesn't really lower the weight so much, but it lowers how much the trigger has to travel to fire the gun. So you're shortening your trigger travel. You're lowering the weight by maybe a pound. So you go from 5.5 pounds to 4.5 pounds. So it's not really the weight a lot of times of the trigger pull job. But there are some firearms out there that you can take from a 10-pound, 11 or 12-pound trigger maybe on some revolvers. And if you, with the right set of springs replaced and with enough polishing on there, you can take a 12-pound trigger and turn it into an 8-pound or 6-pound really smooth trigger. I tell people this at least once a week. If this is a gun you're going to carry for self-defense, absolutely do not do a trigger job on it. And I say this because I followed the George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin case very closely. Zimmerman's gun was absolutely not modified. They actually brought in a person from Kel-Tec, which is the type of gun he was using. They brought in a person from Kel-Tec that testified that trigger on his gun was within factory standards, which was 7 to 9 pounds. Now, it was at 7 pounds. Okay. His trigger the trigger pull weight was 7 pounds. They leave the factory from Kel-Tec somewhere between 7 and 9 pounds. They're all a little bit different. His had just been shot a lot, and that showed wear on it, but it was still within factory specs. And everybody goes, well, so what? What's the big deal? Well, they talked about it for a full day in court. Morning and afternoon, it went through a full day. How much do you charge for a full day at trial, Fred?
It's on that trial. It'll be
let's just say on a murder case. How much would you charge just in general? What do lawyers charge for a day in court on a murder case?
Doesn't have to be you.
Doesn't have to be you.
Anywhere from $10,000,
$1,000.
Right.
So the defense spent $10,000 to $15,000 that day, not counting the expert witness that they brought in from Kel-Tec that they probably had to pay to be there.
Oh no, he was $1,000 an hour. I mean,
right. So they had this guy on the stand. They discussed it. They were trying
to. Slow.
Yeah. So they're trying to.
I talk slow.
Yeah. So I'm way undercharging for my expert testimony if that's the case. But anyway,
taking a deposition and billing by the hour. I'm like, so how old are you?
It'd be like the sloth. Yeah. But my point is, if you got to figure if now let's take into so they're trying to prove that George Zimmerman willfully murdered Trayvon Martin with premeditation, right? That was what they were trying to prove in this case. So imagine if he had a trigger job done.
Well, imagine that, but it's not only that. They would have had a better argument for a lesser included.
All of the above. You're opening yourself up to a lot of liability if you take a factory gun and you do things to it to make it shoot faster, better, whatever else. You're opening yourself up to all of those questions down the road. Yeah, God forbid you have to use it in a self-defense situation.
It's like having a car. If you put nitrous, added to the thing to give it an extra 1,000 horsepower, and then you happen to get in an accident and
doing 80 miles over the speed limit. So think in terms of the same thing. If you so I love laser engraved stuff, cool stuff at the range. I like seeing really cool guns and putting fancy stuff on magazines. However, the one that I'm going to carry in my truck is not going to have all that on it. The firearm that I'm going to have in my waistband has no engraving, and it doesn't have smile and wait for the flash on the end of the barrel. It doesn't have kill them all, let God sort them out engraved on the magazine. Because when I go to court, if I go to court, criminally or civilly, I don't want to be showing that. Yes, in my range bag, and maybe you got pictures of me on Facebook doing something like that, which you won't. But that's all fun and games. But the stuff that's in the court that day, that's on the table as evidence, is going to be plain, and I'm not going to have to explain that. Right,
and that's just what there was I think it was a law enforcement case out west somewhere that the guy shot a guy with an AR. The cop shot a bad guy with an AR-15, and had your effed on the dust cover when you charge an AR-15, you got that dust cover that flies open. We had that printed lasered on his dust cover, so
that didn't go over well.
It doesn't go over well in court. It just doesn't
go
look
over
good.
well for me. I mean, I'd have a field day with that.
Right. So you get my point. It's just we and I get wanting to have cool stuff, you know. I've got an AR-15 that I hunt with sometime that has, when you open the dust cover, it says "Let it rain." It happens to be a black rain ordinance, and that's their slogan, and that's just something they engraved on the. I didn't put it on there. So it says when you charge it up, it flops open. It says "Let it rain." Okay, well, I can say for a fact though that came from the manufacturer, just like that. It's just their company slogan.
And we're happy here. We'll engrave stuff for you. I just don't.
I'm going to caution you every time you do.
You just need to be careful what it says.
Yeah.
I mean, and
we do Bible verses and we do all kinds of stuff.
I mean, if my wife ran an AR-15, she would what did we put on her truck was the you'll love this, Fred, the Lilo. Stitch, the little Stitch dude, the little critter.
Yeah.
She wanted that cut out from the vinyl cutter for a back window of her truck. She calls it Stitch, and so she doesn't have the pajamas like you do, Fred.
Yeah, that's another story.
But you know the thing is we'll do cute stuff, we'll do all that stuff, but when you get into the
serious business,
the serious stuff, then I'm saying is.
Be smart.
Be smart. We have an attorney in the room. We've got gun people in the room, and we're telling you to be smart when it comes to that because it's hard to explain that.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. One, I didn't say this the last show, and my kid called me out about it. It was Father's Day weekend, and people got me some nice stuff, and I really appreciate it. And my middle child gives me this nice wrapped up gift, and I open it up, and it's a pair of freaking Lilo and Stitch pajamas.
Well, now you're required to wear those to Walmart.
And, now I got to go vandalize a Tesla and go to Walmart in the middle of the night.
You wear that to court on Halloween.
Yeah.
What are you dressed up as today, counselor? A Walmart shopper.
Yeah. Freaking, yeah. I actually wore them around for a little while just to make everybody mad. But speaking of the things that engraved, so this is the same son. This is last year I was up on a dove hunt. Kid comes over and says, "Hey,
you
Dad."
Got 25 seconds.
Says that guy says he's got your name tattooed on his butt, and I'm like, "What?" Takes me over there. Guy drops his pants. Sure enough, it says your name on his butt. So
he's shown that off at a bar before. You know
he has.
He's won money off of it. He's won free drinks off of that.
He's won tons. I mean, he's picked up I don't know how many women.
We'll be right back. And we're back. We got the rest of that story on the break. So anyway, I'm still. All right. So So if you're wondering why Charlie can't put two sentences together at the beginning or the end of his segments, because I am producing the show right now. I don't know, and our executive producer Grant is still out with childbirth, and all our prayers going out to him. Everything's good. He's taking a little time off from the show, and we are. Everything's in my lap. We're doing 2 shows today.
Now he's left.
That is 10 segments, guys. 10 segments. I got to edit. I will be here at midnight because I'm lost. I know you won't. But
I will turn the alarm off when you leave and forget to do that because
I got a new phone last week because mine died and nothing works on my phone. I spent 3 days trying to get email to work on my phone.
Is it working?
It does now, but not the way it used to. So there's Microsoft Outlook, and then there's Google Workspace. You got 2 different ways basically. And so I got the new phone. It was dead, and instead of doing an insurance claim, I just got a new phone. There's a Galaxy S25 Ultra, blah, 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 blah. Didn't have to put, whatever. They traded the old one in. It didn't work, and they gave me. So I get home, and I'm like, I got to install this. I got to install that. I can't turn the alarm on at the store remotely because I don't have that app, and I don't have this app and the other app. And I'm like, oh my, I can't even. I want to check the news. That's not in there. On and on and on. And I'm like, well, let me put my email in there because I live off of this phone. Mm-hmm. And I went through. We get our email domains through GoDaddy because it used to be cool.
GoDaddy.
GoDaddy. And so there was and so I called them, and they're going, oh well, you got to talk to our support specialist. And I'm like, all right. Finally, when I couldn't do it over the weekend, on Monday I got them support. You can talk to the support specialist. Well, the support specialist who called me back the next day had an accent.
That drives me
And
insane.
he ain't from
Me
around
too.
here now, and he wants to, and this is from GoDaddy. He goes, "Oh, we'll need to," and I'm not going to do the accent. We'll need to remote into your personal computer,
I
and
bet they can do it.
and then yeah, very much like that, and then we will get into your phone, and then it's now, and he goes, "But I need to be clear with you. It's going to take a long time, and we
Yeah, for
charge
him.
$200 an hour."
Yeah, see, if you got an iPhone,
Yeah, whatever. And so I'm like, well, the problem was the phone was completely dead. Normally you just set them next to each other and they talk
Yeah,
to each
that's
other and
right.
everything comes over, but not when the phone won't come on.
now you got some dude in Bangladesh.
Oh no, I didn't do that. I told him where he could go. I said politely, sir, you can take that and stick it somewhere. And I did tell him. I said, I'm not doing that. I used to be a fraud detective. I'm still in law enforcement. I don't know. And he goes, well, we're legit. No,
We're
you're not
legit-
doing it. It ain't happening ever. I will change domain names. I will get different websites. I will spend a lot more money to keep from paying you $200 an hour and giving you access to my computer, because it's not the money, it's the principle of the thing. And at the end of the day, I got online and I started Googling stuff, and I tried like 40 different things. I mean, I'm doing everything everybody online says, and I finally ended up going with, and I found that I'm not the only person that has this problem. There's a bunch of folks out there having the exact same issue way back at the beginning of the year. I'm just late to the game. And like when you show up, anyway, it's just, so I found out that if anybody out there had the issue, because Verizon couldn't help, GoDaddy couldn't help. Microsoft won't talk to you. They just send you a bunch of emails. Google will not talk to you. No. There's not a person that you can talk to at Google. And ultimately, I found that Microsoft Exchange, I went through the back door and I got Microsoft Exchange. And so now I see my Microsoft email on Gmail, on Google. So I say all that to say this: you send me an email, I don't even know who it comes from. I'm struggling right
Next
now.
thing gonna happen,
struggling.
you're gonna start going through your photos. You're gonna find your head transposed on a chicken and a goat.
Well, the AI can
made-
do that.
done made
AI can do that right now. I mean, AI can do really cool stuff with images.
Done made the dude from Bangladesh mad. Is
Yeah,
what happened.
That's what happened. They're gonna have Charlie.
Oh no, he can't.
It'd be like that scene in that movie Hunger Games where they had they have Charlie's face on a pit bull running out there trying to eat somebody.
That don't bother me. Not being able to check my email, that bothers me. All right, we'll rant session over. We'll be back in just a minute. And we're back, Fred. You can quit talking about that stuff you're not supposed to talk about.
I was talking about Jesus.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Now you're trying to think of a name of an animated
Carol.
movie.
It was the
Christmas Carol.
It's not a Christmas Carol. It's,
Well, that's Charles Dickens.
I understand, but this was featured Charles Dickens as a animated character. And,
I got you.
And he goes back and walks
As we
alongside.
rejoin the show, Fred is still straining his brain trying to come up with the name of something he can't think of. Go ahead, old
So
man.
he takes his child, and the child goes back, and they walk along with Christ as he goes through his journey.
I got you.
And it was a hard way. I wanted to take my grandchildren and say, look, this is what we're celebrating this year, not Santa Claus, and put a little religion into them.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, he wasn't in the Bible, and I now can't remember the name of the.
He might have been in
movie.
the manger scene. Now he could have been there. You don't know. Maybe there was a reindeer in there.
Yeah.
Google it.
I'm afraid if I Google it, it might pull up something else. But
Yeah, you got. We don't want to see anything with your search history on it.
Your name.
Your name.
So I got a beef.
Uh-oh.
There's this trend nowadays among these Gen Z, millennial, blue-haired.
Can we talk about this on the air?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
They don't fish.
They're using words that don't exist, and they're making contraction words
Like bougie.
Yeah, that's one of them. But the one that offends me more than anything is this word tryna.
Tryna.
Tryna is not a word. You sound stupid if you're using the word tryna in an email
Bruh.
or a text.
Trying to, brah.
I'm trying to get me something. Just stop it, okay?
Well, if you listen, saying it and writing it's Yeah, I mean,
you shouldn't even say it.
If you're
But these people are writing it.
If you are using slang, talking, I mean, every generation has its slang. But when you were writing and communicating in writing,
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
a
trying to
little-
find
Well,
this.
the problem is the people that are using those words now are the ones that were at home during middle school and during COVID. It's the just graduated from high school age and are a little bit older maybe that have this own we've talked about it on the show before. They've got their very own language with their very own set of words that don't.
And it's
you know.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just
be patient
This
with it,
new
Fred.
age-
It'll go away.
I don't know. It's I just worry. I mean, my grandkids come in, hey, Pop, I'm trying to find something. No, you're not.
Not in my house.
I'm trying to get my belt out. Put it across your buttocks.
I don't really have an issue with the word. I mean, because being from the country, I use a lot of abbreviated
Okay,
versions.
well,
Fixing to.
That's okay.
I'm fixing
Fixing
it.
But I'm not trying
yonder.
to fixing something. You fixing to
Sensuous.
Sensuous. Since you was up, get me a beer out of the fridge.
Mm-hmm. But you don't write it
Okay.
that way.
No, you
Did
would.
you
I
remember
wouldn't.
the
I wouldn't
Christmas-
text you and
I
say
try not.
sensuous.
I try to draw the line in official communication and personal communication with words like y'all. Okay, now y'all is perfectly acceptable, but I don't write it in an email when I'm conversing with a potential client. I write it in an email when I'm talking to my family or my friends. Hey, when y'all gonna be there? What are y'all thinking about doing? But when I'm emailing someone and presenting a security proposal for services
that
or
probably wouldn't be too
active shooter class, I don't go, well, when
What
I
we
get
gonna
there,
do for
y'all
y'all?
tell me what. No, I'm like, can
I
you
do.
collectively come up with a solution for,
I
as
say
opposed
y'all.
to y'all.
I say y'all on purpose sometimes,
Are
depending
you
on who I'm
alls?
talking to, so they know where I'm coming from.
But I'm talking about. I'm getting emails from Gen Z lawyers using the
Oh,
word
no, that's-
trying
that's-
to.
Oh no, no! See,
Completely,
that's
That's messed up.
totally inappropriate.
And I'm like, dude, would you go to Zoom law school or what? I mean,
Probably.
Well, so one of the reasons we're doing two shows today at the same back to back is because next week, not today, but next Saturday, I'm gonna be in New York City.
New York City?
I'm only
Me
pray-
is
I'm
gonna
only
be
praying for you.
Me is gonna be in New York City with my family. Now I'm gonna say y'all every opportunity I get.
and they're gonna look at you like you got 3 heads.
And that's just exactly the way I want to. We better leave that feller alone over there.
Now, when I was in New York City for the better part of about 8 or 9 months, I worked when I was 22, I think it was, right before I came to work at FSU. I had 21, 22. Went up there working for the phone company, a subcontractor doing phone work in one of the buildings for New York Telephone Company under a third-party contractor. We were not part of the union shop, got ran off, all kinds of stuff. I mean, we took some redneck.
RUNNOFT.
Yeah, runt off. And we got up there, and they snuck us in the building. We were doing this work, and man, you talking about, because you've got so many accents up there, and you got the Bronx, and you got the Queens, and you got Manhattan folks, and you got the Jerseyites, and all that stuff running around there, and everybody talks different, especially those Bronx folks. And there was a guy from the Bronx that just loved to pick on me. And then you bring us, North Florida, South Alabama rednecks up in the mix, and of course, all the women thought it was cute when I was ordering a sandwich or something. Can I get one of them sandwiches? And it's just
Make me
I
a
was
sandwich.
young, and I hadn't learned to clean up my enunciation yet, and it was funny.
Still really hasn't.
I did get in a fight. There in the I think it was the 10th floor of the New York Tel building up on 72nd Street and one of the avenues there, and yeah, we got in a little shoving match up there over. I had enough of his.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had
Pull a
enough.
Switchblade on you.
No, but we became friends after that. I still don't know half of what he was saying, but every morning I'd come in, he'd go, "How y'all doing?" And I'm like, "Y'all's about to kick you." Never mind. Finally, one day,
Y'all about to whoop up on you.
yeah.
I just think it.
And
it's,
my grandfather, my Papa Tony's from New Jersey,
Yeah.
and was born in upstate
Mine ain't.
somewhere in one of
Ain't
the.
got none of them in my. Ain't none of them in my woodpile.
Yeah, well, I mean,
far north as we went was like Virginia.
Right? North Carolina, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, the other part of my family goes back to the late 1600s. I mean, it was way back when you had to agree to work for a while to get over here on the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that they agreed.
Yeah.
It's one of them. You gonna get on the boat.
Yeah, we got a job for you.
Well, I mean, apparently my ancestors, and JD's got a similar background as my ancestors. I have Stricklands are in Parliament. I mean, we were lords and ladies back in the day, and there's a castle, Strickland or Scissor, something like that. Anyway, it was Strickland, and before it was Strickland. It was Strickland. It was DeVos when they came out of Normandy, France, to come over and fight back in the day. My family lineage on the Strickland side I've got that traced back to like 980, and
really?
It goes way back. We were standard bearers for one
English?
of the
French and English.
whatever was in Normandy back in the day. And so
France,
it was part of England. It was part of England. It was all like one country back then, and there was other parts of France. I guess I don't get into the history too much. All I know is that apparently if you were the eldest son, you became somebody. And if some of my ancestors weren't the eldest son, and they ended up on a boat. Oh. So, came over here.
We're going to send him to America and get him a job.
I mean, I got to get on up out of here. I'm going to go on. And, it's ended up in the North Carolina area after Virginia and big tobacco farmers and all that stuff.
Mine's Scottish, which I guess explains my fondness for miniskirts.
Yeah,
and
sure does.
And Scotch.
Mm-hmm.
Your fondness for wearing mini skirts, is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, wearing, looking at them, buying them, shopping for them.
Man, I don't know what.
I don't even know what to do with that, Charlie. I could picture Fred in a kilt. They just, they'd be hanging
You
a
try
regular
to put
kilt.
me in one, I'm gonna be done kilt you.
Yeah, I can see Fred in a kilt, but it'd be hanging around his ankle. So I think that's a skirt at that point. It ain't a
Could
kilt
be.
anymore.
That's a dress.
Yeah, it's a dress.
I've yet to figure out what the high heel thing. Why I like that.
It's because it makes you taller.
I guess that's what it is. So
Makes you as tall as your wife. That's a beautiful thing when you can walk around in high heels in the house and be as tall as your wife, Fred.
yeah, anybody listen to this is
we
picturing.
we know why Fred doesn't see eye to eye with most people
What does this guy look like?
because they have to squat down.
Hey, let me chime in real quick and tell the listeners that these shows didn't start out like this. I just want you to know that.
Fred took us down a whole different rabbit hole when he started coming on the show every day.
Rabbit hole.
Well, depravity.
More like a cave.
It's down a hole. I wonder. I can't say what the FCC.
It's scary. What you wonder is a terrifying thing.
How about you, Paul? Where'd your family come from?
Hold on, we're out of time. It might be a longer story than we got time for. But we will come right back in just a minute.
I don't know if you reproduced that, but so Fred, you said you had a history professor.
I had a history professor at the center.
Okay.
And this was I graduated in 1990. Okay, so he would have been 80, late 80s. He was already old as hills then. Mm-hmm. And he was the grandson of President, I think it's John Tyler.
Mm-hmm. Tippecanoe and Tyler too. Yes,
that's the one.
Tippecanoe.
All right, so which is a long time
ago. Yes. But he was the grand.
He was President Tyler's grandson. So apparently President Tyler had a son when he was 70, 75 years old.
Okay.
That son had a son when he was 70, 75 years old. And that son, it
was your teacher.
That was my professor. And
Charlie said that he recently died.
And I said he probably was having trouble changing his kid's diaper in his 70s. And I said, it's a shame when you have to change your kid's diaper and your diaper at the same time. It just became a little bit over. Anyway, it was funny on the break.
It was. It's probably funny right then.
He did have a fondness for all the cadets' girlfriends for whatever reason.
Well, we know where you get it from.
Yeah.
So going back to Paul, where's your family from?
Yeah, where's your family from?
We Americans.
There you go.
There you go.
That's all I know.
That's all you know.
Well, everybody came from somewhere. So if you go back, and like I said, I can trace my father's lineage back to 980 with the help of all that stuff online and genealogy and all of it. So, but even they came from somewhere before that, and all the way back before that. And then I run my DNA, and there's all kinds of messed up stuff in there. But now my wife, on the other hand, I think she's like the whitest person you're ever going to meet. I mean, her DNA and all, and not to mention her complexion, but
I thought you was talking about her skin.
No,
She's
goes
not
back
white.
to-
She's translucent.
Her ancestors are up there in Ireland somewhere when they used to
Must have red
paint
hair.
herself up blue and all that stuff
Yeah.
and fighting tribal wars. And that's
All
her.
the
That's where
pinks.
she came. Yeah, there you go.
So,
You know me and names.
well, I did this very in-depth DNA study. So way past ancestry DNA or 23andMe or whatever, where they tell you you're 60% Scottish and whatever this and where. There's one out there called Genome Link, which researches deep ancestral DNA. And I'm from all over the world. I did like 14% Iberian Peninsula Italian. So they kind of lump those two together, which is Spain, Portugal, and Italy. So, and then there's some in the Middle East. I've got some from the Middle East, from Iran, a bunch of the Russian, and then for whatever reason, some Dravidians from India, southern India. So it's just neat to see how.
Of course, now
All over
you
the
put
world.
your DNA in there, law enforcement gets a hold of that.
Okay, that's fine. They can have it. I don't care. Like I said, if they do whatever, that's why Charlie and
Well,
I.
JD ran his, and all kinds of families
I
came out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I found a whole bunch of family because I was adopted.
Are you related to Elizabeth Warren?
No,
Okay.
I do have like 1.3% Native American though. So
That's
I got
more than she
more than
got.
she
That's
does.
more she's got.
More Native American she is. Yeah, JD found all kinds of folks. That's how he found his brother.
Yeah.
All my brothers.
Yeah, all your brothers
all
and sisters.
5 brothers and 2 sisters. Growing up an only child, it's kind of been a shock.
Yeah,
wow.
Look at Dale down there.
There's one of them that
You found how many?
5. I have 5 half brothers and 2 half sisters, and I grew up an only child. I was adopted.
And a bunch of them are little.
there's one of them
Wow.
who I think actually takes after your biological father.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Some. I don't know.
I don't know, just based on the number of kids he has.
I tell you, we moved up here 22 years ago. We didn't know anybody. I brought Wendy and my daughter Heather up here, moved to Monticello. Fell in love with the area, bought land, built a house, so on. And my daughter gets on that Ancestry
Uh-huh.
website. My great-grandparents lived and worked on a plantation in Monticello, Florida.
Really?
Had no idea.
Well, I found out that my biological grandfather worked and died at Florida State Hospital in Chattahoochee, and my mom and daddy that raised me in Chattahoochee, where I grew up in Chattahoochee, went to high school with basically my biological father's first cousins. She knew the whole, my biological father's side of the family from growing up with them. It's just a small world. That's what it boils down to. It's just a really
Who's
small
that
world.
little kid running around on the streets out there in Chattahoochee?
I don't know, but he
That's
looks
little
like
David. He belongs to somebody around here. I don't know. He
He looks-
favors everybody in town.
He looks like them Gibsons.
But we gonna
down
raise
the
him.
street
So,
Hey, y'all want
he
to talk
was
about
raised
fishing before we run out of time?
okay.
We got
We
5
sure
minutes
can.
left, and we need
We
to.
sure can.
I've got something else to talk about.
I brought the frogs back again.
Show and tell.
Yes, because they have been kept.
That was a big old bass.
I got a picture
Big
for you to
trout.
put on this giant one. Last time we were here, I know Bobby Williams, he was asking about what this particular bait is. I'm gonna try to explain this because Charlie keeps telling me that they can't see what I'm saying. So help me, JD.
All right.
This is a Lunker Hut
That's the brand.
frog. That's the name of it, and it's got these little feet that spin.
Mhm.
And I've been pulling these off, and then adding some. These are
Bait keepers.
bait keepers.
Yep.
It's actually an owner's.
These
center
are not
pin.
real frogs for those
That's
of you
right.
who
These
don't know
are not
anything
real
about
frogs. We're
fishing.
not-
These are lures. He's not pulling the feet off of real
These are-
frogs. And if he was, we'd be eating them.
Yeah.
These are hollow plastic frogs that float on their top water lures that float on top of the float on top of the lily pads or the water.
That's
Well,
right.
that camera right there is capturing it. Somebody wants to
So
watch it
there's-
on YouTube.
There's one with, and what I do is just screw. I put 2 of these pins together.
Yep.
And I'll put my hand up so they can see it.
You call that one Lieutenant Dan because
That's
he needs new
That's
legs.
right. That's Lieutenant. He's gonna get some new legs. That's right. And then I'll screw it in there, and then take me any kind of trailer that's got
Any kind of jig.
any kind of jig trailer and screw it on there. And man, this thing has been catching some big ones.
And that's all I got to say about that.
It is.
So what's going to
Very
happen now is
good.
these bait companies are going to see your adaptation of said thing, and now not only do they sell the initial bait, they also sell replacement jig tails, and you gave your secret away, and me and you could have got rich
That's
on
right.
that.
Well,
Paul.
these actually come. I had a customer
Captain
fishing
Paul
one.
Tire copyright 2025.
Yes.
I had a customer fishing last week, and he was fighting a
Patent
fish
pending.
in a big one, about a 5-6 pounder, and it jumped. And I thought a bait fish jumped out of its, slung out of its mouth. It was actually the feet; they just pop off.
Okay.
So it's that's.
We'll have to come up with a
it's kinda
better. We'll,
cheesy.
we'll come up with a better device there,
Yes.
Paul. We can re-engineer that.
Yes, and that's what I did with this. But it has been producing some really big bass.
You said that one you showed me a picture of before we started the show was 9 pounds.
9 pounds 8 ounces. And that when that fish hit about from, well, a little bit further from here to Charlie, but when it struck. Now, anybody that's bass fish knows that a topwater bite when they go over is almost. I've never tried crack, but I hear it's very addictive. it's addictive.
You get off of it a couple of days.
Well, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, and I was actually had a guide with me when that fish struck, because I told him, I said, I don't want to catch. He said, no, go ahead and fish, buddy. It's all right. You can fish. I was like, all right. Charlie, that
Tease
fish,
me with a
when
good
that
time.
fish hit, it splashed me and the guy 18 foot behind me in the back of the boat. It hit so hard. I've not had a fish hit that hard ever. It
All
was unbelievable.
My granddaddy would call it. He
that-
said it's like dropping a keg of nails in the water.
That's exactly what it was like.
Faloosh.
All right, so for those of our listeners who might be going to Lake Oconee for the 4th of July weekend,
Yes.
what would you recommend that they fish with?
Are there lily pads in
Are
Lake
they lily
Oconee?
pads?
I don't think there's very many of them. there.
I fished up there before, JD, and I would take a plastic worm, a shaky head, and look for points,
Now, do
main
we-
lake points in about 10 to 12 foot of water, and just run your jet ski with there, or you control it behind the boat. Just fish, real slow while your feet are hanging in the water.
So what does our
Ain't gotta worry
shaky
about
head look
gators.
like? Do you happen to have one?
No, but I'll show you what one is. I'll pull it
Okay.
up on my phone.
So a shaky head.
Yes, fish a shaky head about
So
a
are we in
3/16
depth or what?
12 to 18 foot of water.
It is a.
You'd
It
get
is
bit.
you know what a saltwater jig head
Sure.
is
Yes.
for saltwater? Okay, imagine the lead part of the jig head with a loop on there to a hook.
That's
so
right.
you've got the hook and the
okay.
worm that
And it'll
floats
sit-
around,
It
wiggles
kinda
around
shows.
freely, but
It
you've got
articulates.
it articulates, but you've got
you
your line is tied to a lead jig head to get it down to the bottom, and if you
Because
swing,
there's a
swing by
lot
the
of
house, I'll
spotted
give you
bass up
some.
there.
So we're going to want
Yeah,
what are they?
there's a lot of spotted bass up there.
Spotted bass. All right.
Yep.
Good
And
eating?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're good to eat. They sure are.
Yeah, they're great.
If Paul ever kept one, he could tell you, but he turns
We
them
don't
loose.
say it out loud on the show, but largemouth bass are very good to eat too.
I mean,
They are.
hey,
I just don't eat them myself.
you wouldn't eat one.
He makes a living on them.
I know we're fixing this, but next week we're going to go into some different types of frogs.
Yeah,
I brought that to you.
we'll catch that on the next show. Obviously, here in just a few minutes. Y'all can listen to it next week, but we're gonna do it here in a few minutes.
Hope everybody had a safe and happy 4th of
Yes.
July, and everybody's got all 10 fingers and no eyes put out or none of that stuff.
Yeah,
we're,
be
we're,
careful.
we're not
Got
doing
shot
fireworks at
red.
the house this year because I got too many goats and chickens and
Oh, your goats,
cows.
and you're fainting goats. Whether they know,
They
what
don't
they're
faint.
not. Well, they would. They would.
Goats faint?
There are fainting goats.
Really, Fred? You've never
You know
seen
what?
the fainting goat?
All right. We'll see y'all next time.